Smart politics for stupid times. Welcome to the Unprecedented podcast with John Aravosis and Cliff Schechter.
I want to ask you, maybe just and I know you've talked about this before, but I still thought it was very interesting. I saw your interview with Seth Meyers last year when you were talking about sort of the origins of this little dispute you've had with Donald. And could you maybe tell us a little bit about it? Because I think it's interesting because it also sort of frames your vision of him, which I think is all of our vision of him now. But you were there early on.
Well, if you grew up on Long Island like I did and you're, 56 years old like I am, you think of him as a joke because that's what it was when we were growing up. We were watching his airplanes being repossessed off the LaGuardia runway with his name all on them. And, he was just the punchline to everything when I was a kid. There was no one ever had any reverence. No one ever thought anything lofty about Donald Trump or took him as anything serious, And I've never met him, had no desire to meet him when I had my own show. He wanted to be on, and I said, no way, I have no interest in him. And then there was, many times during the run of the show where we would ask corporations to pay money to charity based on something that happened in the show. So, there was sweeping. Swiffer was paying us to sweep during sweeps. So we would have a celebrity walk on, sweep, and walk off. And I didn't have to talk to them. And that was the only time he was on the show because he had been asking over and over again if he could be on. And, we didn't have any kind of public feud. I just thought he was a joke. So I didn't book him. I had no interest.
Growing up in New York, I remember that well. He was always a joke.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And I was friendly with Marla Maples when she did Will Rogers Follies. We had some mutual Broadway friends. And I became friendly with her. And her leading man was my leading man in Greece. So he got invited to their wedding. So I went to the wedding as a guest of Jason Opsahl, who was Marla Maples' leading man. So I was at his first time I met him, I'm at his wedding with Marla Maples. And he's walking down the aisle. And I believe this was the fourth wedding. He had stood her up 3 times. And they already had a baby. So people in the audience who were friends of hers, because I don't think he had any friends, he would walk down the aisle and shake hands with people sitting like me in the aisle. Like, how you doing? Hi. As he's walking to his beloved, how you doing there? Good to see you. Joy Behar was there. I was there. Like, there was just people who went as like not because they had any love for Donald Trump, but because they were friends with Marla. So that was my first interaction with him. And we were sitting at the table of gays, the Broadway table of gays. And we stayed for about a half an hour and then left. And that was my whole experience with Donald Trump. So then I'm on The View. He's talking about Miss America. She had been caught making out with a girl in the Village, and on the cover of the Post was, oh no, Miss America has fallen. And Donald Trump called a press conference at 10 o'clock. The View was live at 11. And said, he was gathering everyone to shame her and to say he had forgiven her. But first he shamed her, right? So I said, what is like the Scarlet Letter? It's like, Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. He's like the pimp. Who does he think he is? He's the moral arbiter of teenage girls' behavior now. This man who divorced his first wife, had an affair, divorced the second wife, had an affair, had kids both times. This is not exactly the man who... And then the facts that I had in front of me were from Wikipedia. But I didn't even need Wikipedia because I knew the facts, that he was bankrupt all these times, that he got his money from his father, that he was not a self-made man, that he's in fact a very bad businessman, that there had been all of these documentaries about him and where he tells his children that we have less money than that homeless person on the street. Like, it to me, he was nothing ever but a joke. And then after I said those things that I said about him, all of which were factually correct on The View, he went insane. Like, he went crazy. And I remember taking my kids, who were all like under 6 at the time, 4 of them, out to dinner. I thought, we got to go somewhere that, it's not going to be talked about, because I didn't expect it to be such big news. I didn't know he was going to go on every show, including like Peppa Pig. The guy was on every show he could get booked on. So, we ended up going to this sports place. I figured, okay, a sports place in our town, it's like a little, burger place with TVs, but it's family kind of. We get in there on the sports shows. Donald Trump has called Rosie O'Donnell fat and disgusting, and the way that he came back and be like, he went on the Today Show with all of his family. He went on it was comical if it wasn't really about you. But he never. That was the beginning, that was the middle, and that was the end. Everything from there on was just him, launching never-ending missiles at the country of me, and me sometimes trying to deflect, protect, or shoot back. Mark Burnett had the chance to save democracy by releasing all of the outtakes of him and his horribly misogynist, racist, sexist, evil ways, and he chose not to. He still has those tapes somewhere. Democracy is on the precipice of ending, and Mark Burnett is sitting in his Malibu Hollywood home with his Touched by an Angel superstar wife, thanking Jesus and making God movies while he's holding Satan's videotapes. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And Mark's going to the Emmys with Roma Downey and smiling and wearing crosses and que sera, sera. My son was the ring bearer at the Melania wedding, as if that is some sort of credit to that child or to his family.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling. I mean,
what do you think of Kavanaugh? I would love to get just your general opinion.
I think that he is unqualified, and the only reason that he was chosen was because Trump needs somebody who's going to, quote-unquote, have loyalty to him, and that's not the job of a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Chuck Grassley and Orrin Hatch never die. They're like 147 each, and they've been there. They've each been in the Senate, seriously, for like 40 years.
Grassley is 85.
Listen, when someone is 85 at Thanksgiving, you don't let them carve the turkey. There is no way that these two men, who pretty much eviscerated, insulted, diminished, derided Anita Hill, that those guys get to question this woman who's come forward, who said, by the way, he tried to rape me when I was 15 and he was 17. And there was someone else in the room, and please send the FBI so we could investigate this. The only people who don't want it investigated are the ones who are guilty.
Well, now, Mueller, Robert, you've had kind things to say about Robert Mueller, I've seen.
Yes, I love him. I look at him and I think he's going to save America. There is Captain America. And I love that he hasn't leaked anything, hasn't done one interview. He's putting his nose to the grindstone. I love that it's all these like Irish working class guys taking down this faux rich Queens little sniveling fuck. Honest to God, like he's this wannabe from Queens, Donald Trump. His father was the slumlord who was in the KKK. These are facts, people. And this guy is now running the United States of America. These are bold facts, which we can, if you only said that every night on the news. Donald Trump is from Queens. He was poor until his father made money as a slumlord.
I wanted to maybe just bring up the Iraq thing, because that was also part of or was it not the basis of the whole crazy issue with Hasselbeck, or whatever her name is, who used to always drive me freaking crazy on that show. No, I did. I hated watching her. She reminds me of the people on CNN they always get when they get those crazy Trump Republicans who you just sit there and go, why are they even here? But
right. And do they really believe that? Like, that's what I was thinking. When I took the job and I knew Elizabeth's politics, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to just love her. Like, my job for me, like with my own therapist, with my own life, was, to go on there in an election year and actually talk about what was going on, and also love her no matter what. And I did that, and I took her to a lot of events with our children. We had children the same ages, and we were actually friendly. And so
you took her to her first Broadway show, right? I believe
I did. Yes, I did. I was shocked she could live in New York and never have been to Broadway. So I said, "Come on, let's go." I was overtly trying to be Christ-like and loving, to tell you the truth. And then when we were on the air, when I was questioning, really, who are the terrorists? If you're in your house in Afghanistan and your country has done nothing in Iraq, if your country has done nothing to our country, and somebody kicks in the door, and who's the terrorist, right? And so what they were saying is Rosie doesn't support the troops. She calls them all terrorists. And Elizabeth, knowing how much money I gave to the troops, what I do for the troops, who I am as a person. At the time my son was not yet a Marine, but it was quite obvious that that's what he was going to do. It shocked me that she didn't stand up for me. It shocked me that she didn't say, no, actually, I know her. I've been to her house. She does not feel that way about what she was trying to tell you and me was that we're in another country and we've kind of invaded them and we're the interlopers.
So in a way, it was sort of betrayal by a friend, too, beyond just the political argument.
Well, that's the fight you saw, was the betrayal of two friends on national TV. The fight was not about the politics. The fight was me looking at her and going, how could you do that to me? And her sort of going, what? And then me going, well, you're a coward. Not a coward in her political views. You're a coward to not stand up for your friend, who you know, and who you can't change the essence of who someone is by telling lies about them if the truth is there as an alternate, right? So, I mean, the one thing that happened that happened during a commercial once with Elizabeth that I think says everything about Elizabeth and me. It was when the terrorist from Guantanamo was being tortured and he admitted to doing everything, remember?
Yeah.
I forget his name, Hari or something.
Yeah, I just remember he had a really hairy back when they showed him on.
He had a hairy back, right, and a cutout T-shirt, and they put my head on him. Yeah, that guy.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, one day he admitted, and it was cop news, that he had done everything there was to do, and I said on TV, including the Kennedy assassination when he was 3. Because apparently...
No, that was Ted Cruz's dad, actually.
Yeah, right. That he did everything, this guy, and she said, I said to her, well, you know what, Elizabeth, if they had your daughter in the other room and they were torturing her, would you admit that you did 9/11? I'm just curious, would you? She said, no, I would not. And I said, okay. We went to break, and I looked at her and said, but you know what? I would.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, that's the difference between you and me. If they were torturing your daughter in another room, and they were going to stop if I said that I would say it to save your daughter.
We talked a little bit before the show, but having grown up in New York City and remembering the period where Rudy Giuliani was our mayor, and that's what I think was so important, is that you, both before and after, are willing to speak out against him. And now we're all seeing other people who didn't know what a lunatic he is. But I figured I'd ask you to talk a little bit about that too.
Certifiable, he's certifiable. I mean, he's like your drunk uncle at the Knights of Columbus Hall. Everyone's just trying. Somebody get Rudy. Uncle Rudy's going crazy. Don't let him near the Fatranos. The Fatranos hate him. I mean, he is everything that's wrong. And again, he's too old to be doing what he's doing. There are some troubling times ahead if November 6th doesn't go the way we want. I mean, we use it or lose it. My doctor always says to me, because I had a heart attack 6 years ago, and he says, if you don't exercise, if you don't do it, you'll lose it. You use it or you lose it. When you get to be over 50, the parts of your body that you don't use will stop working because you're either living or you're dying, and it's your choice. And that's where we are with democracy as well. We use it or we're going to lose it. And when we lose it, it's for good.
I didn't know you had a heart attack. I assume everything's going well then, now, hopefully.
I had a massive heart attack. I had a widowmaker, which is what Martin Luther King's daughter Yolanda had, and before she hit the floor, she was dead. I was very lucky in that most people, when you have the widowmaker, which is the left ulterior descending in your artery, in your heart, if that one's blocked, they don't even go to check that one till last, because if that one's blocked, you're usually dead.
The really quick funny story was back when you had your the Rosie O'Donnell show, and I don't know why there was already talk about you being gay, but it wasn't, I don't think it was widely known, but we all knew it in the community. And somehow it came up in a conversation. My mom and sister loved you, both moderate Republicans, and somehow it came up, and I said, well, she's gay. And they went, no, she's not. I said, guys, what do you, there is no way Rosie O'Donnell is gay. And I'm kind of thinking, well, you kind of.
Well, it's funny. I felt what you felt. I felt, how could they not know?
Yeah,
so, I thought, people go, you like Tom Cruise. No, I said I'd like him to mow my lawn. Many gay women like the aesthetic beauty of men. I don't want to fuck them. Like, that's not my thing. I wasn't thinking, how can I get him naked and touch his gonads? That was not in my, my brain. But I guess if you leave part out, which was what we did at the time, before Will and Grace, before Ellen, before, when it wasn't even possible. I remember when I was on my show and they said to me, oh, there's a new NBC show coming out, a gay guy, and he lives with a straight girl. I'm like, well, that'll last 1 week. Because I was thinking of Tony Randall and Love Sydney. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Tony. Yeah, and they had the big thing. They had a photo of the lover who had died, a photo on the mantle of the fireplace, and that was the big scandal. I remember going to church and hearing the priest talk about it, and having the priest talk about Maud, because Maud had an abortion, and
right.
That
was a huge deal, right?
Huge deal, yeah. So I don't know. I always knew I was gay. It never really seemed to be a big deal. There was lots of stuff that we were dealing with in our family, with a dead mother and an abusive father who, without the mother there then, we were kind of surviving as best as we could. So I never felt as though the gay part was such a huge hurdle for me to jump over. I understand it is for other people, and I totally respect and honor what they have to go through to get to like a place of self-acceptance about it. But I never really went through that. I had so many other things at home that felt like they were much bigger fish to fry.
To hear the rest of this episode, become a premium subscriber to the Unpresidented Podcast by going to patreon.com/Unpresidented Podcast. And with a $5 a month or more subscription, you not only support the show, but you get access to this episode and all of our premium episodes, including all of our great guests. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support.